Hello, and welcome back to the latest Penumbra Tower Devlog. Penumbra Tower is a grid-based roguelike where the player will ascend an infinitely generating tower, fighting enemies, and collecting items. I originally had a different plan for this part of the video, but because my Steamworks account is still not verified, there is no store page yet, so I'll save it for the next devlog, hopefully. So up until this point, there has only been one room type that gets generated every time the player progresses to the next floor. I've talked briefly about adding different floor types in previous devlogs, and this devlog is going to cover the addition of two new floor types, the Volcanic Floor and the Forest Floor, with the addition of some small updates to the dungeon room as well as some additional functionality to some hazard tiles and some new items. I've also recorded this devlog a little differently. I'm trying to show more of my progress as I work on the new tile maps and items. So let's get started. Before we get into the main part of the devlog, one very small update that I made was to the status effect system. So now, when a status effect is applied to a unit, there's an icon indicator that appears above that unit's head, making it very clear which status effect has been applied to the unit. This isn't too important in this example because the unit has obviously been frozen, but there will be instances where a unit can have up to at least 3 status effects active at once. So, here's what the current forest room looks like. I've segmented each room type into a switch statement, so now when a room type is randomly selected, all the walls, floors, hazards, and obstacles are converted into that type of the variant related to that room. This looks pretty crazy right now, but I'm sure you can see that this doesn't really look like a forest yet, because this is just all placeholder right now. So there are a couple things that I need to work on, mainly drawing out all the various tiles needed for this room, and this really bright green background color probably isn't the right color, but I won't know for sure until all the tiles are done. Alright, after a little bit of massaging, here's where we're at right now. I decided to actually do the volcanic room before the forest room, just because in my mind, at least, I'm imagining the forest room is going to be more work somehow. I don't even know if that's true, but working on the volcanic room first, kind of like the same situation as the lava room. I've got this like red background color and I've got this red floor variant and red door, but what I'm pointing out here is the wall tile here. I've kind of got this like sort of like rocky, volcanic, sort of like rough looking rock that I'm going for. Anyway, I'll keep working on it. I think I need to like get all of the tiles finished before it's holistically realized, if you know what I mean. Okay, so this is what we're currently working with. I've finished the sprite for the basic wall tile, the top corner, bottom corner, and side wall tiles. And I've also got this sort of like diagonal checkerboard pattern going on the floor just so it's like something different. I like it, but I'm not too sure how I feel about it. I think it looks a little interesting when it is next to the hazard tiles because it's like not the same angle as the other room where it's just a regular checkerboard, but anyway, it's a problem for another time. I still need to do the door tile for this room, and I'm also thinking about doing a different kind of obstacle. I do like how the skull looks here, but I'm interested in doing some sort of like stalagmite. Is it stalactite or stalagmite? Whichever one is the one that grows on the floor. I know one grows on the floor, one grows on the ceiling. Maybe it's stalagmite. I don't know. Anyway, I'll work on that on the door next. Okay, so here's where we're at currently. I now have all the wall tiles and the door tile is also done. Actually, I'll move here so you guys can see the door tile better. That way the enemy's not blocking it. So I have this door tile. It's very similar to the other door tile, but this one is kind of like reskinned, I guess is like the best way to say it, so it like blends in with this like wall texture. I've also updated the wall texture a little bit to make it look less like tiled. It still obviously looks tiled, but you know, it is what it is. I started working on this like new obstacle, stalagmite. I think stalagmites are, I still don't know. Anyway, if there was one more update that I had to do with this is I think I'm going to change the floor tile to get it looking a little less like this like diamond texture, because I don't think it really makes sense for a cave. I do like how it looks, I just think it doesn't fit this room, so that's probably the last thing I'm going to work on for this. I've gone and updated the ground tile again. I decided to go for a more simple pattern that almost kind of looks like dirt now. I think this ground fits the rocky room better than the previous tiled idea that I was going with. I also did a small update to the stalagmite. I simplified the colors a little bit and also cleaned up the edges, so in my opinion it looks a bit better now. I decided that the stalagmites in the room were looking a little boring, and an easy way I can fix that is, instead of instantiating a single obstacle into the room, I swapped it to an array instead. So now when the room is generated, it pulls randomly from that array. So as you can see here, we now have some skulls that got spawned in as well. And I decided that the room wasn't looking lively enough, but I didn't want to add in any more obstacles, so instead I added these little plants that blow in the wind slightly. And the way that these spawn in is quite different from everything else. Essentially, when each ground tile is instantiated, it has a chance to have a plant growing on it or not, and if the tile does have a plant growing on it, it will spawn 1 to 3 of those plants at a random vector position on the tile, giving it this sort of random placement. I mean, there's some instances where the grasses are also overlapping a little bit slightly, but it's not too noticeable. And also it has a chance to flip their XY position.
2 seconds later.
I've been a bit lazy with the recording again, and I've done a bunch of work without recording any progress, so I'm sorry. So I'll just quickly run through everything that I've done between now and the last clip. So here is the volcanic floor again. It looks the same as it did in the previous clip, but the room size looks smaller. And that's because I've added some variability to the width and height of the room. So now, when a new floor is loaded, it will pull a random width and height from a set range. This will make some floors more challenging than others. Like in this example, we have a pretty small room, so you're quite limited in terms of space when dealing with these 3 enemies. And here's the new forest floor. I would still consider this a work in progress right now, as I'm not 100% happy with the top wall tiles. This floor type is intended to be slightly easier than the other floors, because the water tiles don't apply a status effect like the other hazard tiles do. But as you can see, I've finished the wall tiles for it. Well, kind of. I still might change the top wall tiles, but there's a door tile, side wall tiles, new ground tile. I'm using the rock sprite that was previously left over. I still have the skulls here too. I was thinking about maybe adding like a stump as like an alternate obstacle type. Have this sort of grass, very similar to how the other volcanic room looks. And here's what the dungeon room looks like now. As you can see, with the variable sizing, it's given us a short but wide room size this time. Since the lava tiles are now being used in the volcanic floor, I needed to create a new hazard tile for the dungeon. And I figured, what better hazard tile for a dungeon room than a spike trap? I'm still not 100% on the coloring for this tile, but I did want it to have a different color than the rest of the floor so it stands out. The animation on this tile was pretty simple. The spikes are just toggling between the visibility of 2 different layers. I also wanted to create another obstacle for this floor other than the skull, so I have this new rock sprite now. I'm not sure how I feel about the obstacles spawning on hazard tiles. I think it looked okay in the other floors, but with this new spike hazard, I'm wondering if I should change the spawning behavior, because as you can see here, it does look a little bit strange, but it might be a problem for another time. I don't know if I have a solution for this right now, or if I care about it enough.
2 seconds later.
So right now, the only hazard tile effect is burning damage on the lava tiles, but obviously that won't work for the spike tiles, so I'll need to create a flat damage tile effect. Okay, not quite what I had in mind. Alright, much better. But working on the spike tile got me thinking. I know I said earlier that the water tile wouldn't have any effect, but I think it would make a lot of sense if the water tile did have an effect. So now, if a unit currently is burning and they step on a water tile, the burning effect will be removed. And since the water tile removes burning, it would make sense if the lava tile removed the freezing status effect as well. I think this video is already a little bit longer than the other devlogs, but I wanted to work on at least one new item effect in this devlog. So, the Ice Smasher is a synergistic item that works well with the freezing status effect. With the Ice Smasher, while attacking an enemy unit that has been frozen, you have a chance to shatter the enemy, dealing double damage and removing the freeze status effect. This item was way more trouble to implement than I originally thought, which was actually a good thing because it uncovered a bunch of issues with the way I implemented the freeze status effect to begin with, although it did take quite a few hours to get all of the bugs fixed. I don't want to get too into the weeds, but essentially it was causing inconsistencies with the freeze status not applying a duration to the target, and sometimes not attaching the scriptable object either, which was very hard to figure out because all of these elements are contained within a single method. And there was another bug that was freezing the unit's actions for double the amount that it should have been, but everything's sorted out now. So that's all the updates I have for this devlog. Next I'll probably work on enemy scaling, but I wasn't sure if I was going to release this devlog now or just wait until the store page was approved, but who knows when that's going to happen. And I also want to play the Path of Exile League on Friday, so I might as well just release this devlog now.